Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Hubar begins now.
Good evening. TT Line has admitted to making serious mistakes over the biggest infrastructure stuff-up in Tasmania's history during a scathing parliamentary hearing. Fresh doubts have also been raised about whether Spirit 4 will be able to be leased at all.
TT Line and Tasports have been trading blows for months over the Spirit fiasco. Today, an extraordinary mea culpa from the ferry operator on the bungled berth build.
The first mistake that we made was to be involved in this project in the first place, that is, an infrastructure build.
TT Line's interim chair told a GBE scrutiny committee it's one of 4 major errors the company made, admitting it wasn't ready to take on the project as it evolved and was overconfident following success in Geelong, and it should have told the Premier about concerns over delays sooner.
Should I accept responsibility for it? I do. On behalf of the company, it's an embarrassment to us.
But the confession hasn't reassured independent David O'Byrne. He's renewing calls for both boards to go.
Acknowledging the failures of the company were statements of the bleeding obvious.
And while the first new Spirit sits idle in Scotland as leasing options are explored, questions turn to whether that was the right decision after recent meetings with a broker.
How likely is it that this ship is actually going to be able to be leased according to that broker?
I would have to say not a strong likelihood, because we have limited coverage back from that broker.
Sounding alarm bells for Labor.
TT Line and Erica Betts are going broker shopping now. The ships are very, very unlikely to be able to be leased out, and so it makes no sense to leave them in Scotland.
It nearly seems as though Dean Winter does not want the people of Tasmania to get a dividend from a potential lease.
Anthony Dodd, 7 Tasmania News.
Meanwhile, the government will look to privatise parts of the public trustee after accepting recommendations from a review into the government enterprise. The changes would see wills, estates and trustee services transferred to the private sector. The government will also bring in a statutory body to improve the public's trustees' runs. The reforms are expected to be finalised by the end of March. Tasmanians in Hobart's northern suburbs now have access to bulk billed Medicare closer to home. The Bridgewater Urgent Care Clinic has opened its doors, with the Federal Health Minister paying a visit today, as we heard. It's hoping to relieve pressure on our hospitals.
Another dose of the federal government's election promise in effect. Bridgewater, now the home to Tasmania's latest urgent care clinic.
Not only is this delivering terrific quality care for people in their community, now it is starting to take pressure off our hospital emergency departments.
Walk-in bulk billed healthcare available 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. without the need for an appointment.
This will benefit the Southern Midlands, the Brighton and the Derwent Valley communities.
Equipped to treat a range of urgent but not life-threatening conditions and injuries.
Integrated care, allied health care, so we have physiotherapy and psychology. We're looking desperately for a podiatrist.
It's a major boost for Hobart's northern suburbs.
This area that doesn't have any emergency care or emergency-like care,
previously leaving them no choice but to front up to our emergency departments, with more than a third of attendees classed as semi-urgent or non-urgent.
Which puts enormous pressure on our ambulance services and also our emergency department. People waiting far too long for the treatment they need.
It's hoped directing patients here can improve flow and ease pressure. The facility brings Tasmania's number of urgent care clinics to 5, with 4 others operating in Devonport, Launceston and Hobart.
It is the 84th clinic that we have opened since we were elected to government.
Rebecca Gadaneris, 7 Tasmania News.
The state government isn't ruling out the possibility of arming Tasmania Police with tasers. The introduction of the non-lethal weapon has been subject to fresh questions this week, following a fatal police shooting in Launceston on Tuesday.
We're taking advice from police about the use of tasers. If it's a tool that they need to do their job safely, then of course we'll back them in.
Currently, Tasmanian officers are the only ones in the country who don't carry tasers. The federal government has chipped in more than $2 million for a long-awaited spruce-up of community sports facilities at Clarendon Vale Oval. The upgrades include a redeveloped pavilion after the current structure sustained storm damage and lighting improvements for sports events.
We'll be able to get more utilisation of the oval. It means more people will be encouraged to take up sport and to use these community facilities.
The full $4.6 million project is expected to be completed over the next couple of years. After a record 451 games for Australia and 5 Olympic appearances, Tasmanian hockey superstar Eddie Ockenden is calling time on his illustrious career. But he isn't giving up the game altogether, returning home to take on a new role.
From fresh-faced hockey hopeful,
no matter what you do with the Australian team, it's always good to come back and do well for Tasmania.
To Olympic flag bearer, the name Eddie Ockenden is synonymous with hockey. After 2 World Cups and an unmatched 451 Australian caps, Eddie Ockenden bowing out of the game he's dedicated his life to in the same place his professional career started 2 decades ago.
The first time I was told I was playing for Australia was here on the loudspeaker. So I was sort of like an 18-year-old, and it was like, you know, in that moment I realised, I'm probably going to be in Perth like in a week and playing for Australia in a few weeks.
And while from the outside his rise to the top seemed meteoric and inevitable,
Eddie Ockenden is there.
Ockenden's path from Institute of Sport trainee to household name is a story of perseverance.
I remember when I was there, I was just trying to be as good as everyone else and getting frustrated that I wasn't, and I was sort of getting dominated at training and I wasn't as good as I wanted to be.
But it wouldn't be long before his Olympic debut at Beijing in 2008.
Eddie Ockenden! Australia draws level!
All up, 5 appearances on the world's biggest stage, winning 3 medals, but never gold.
You can just sook and be upset for a little bit, and after that it's all right, you can't do anything about it, so I'm happy with everything we're able to do.
But as this chapter closes, another begins. Next month he moves back to Tasmania from Perth to lead the new Tigers Academy and support the TIS hockey program. And when it comes to inspiring the next generation, there are surely few better for the job.
Sometimes you have to enjoy the harder parts like training early or tough running and things like that. So if you can enjoy it as much as you can, the more you'll do it, the better you'll get.
Nick Kelly, 7 Tasmania News.
And Nick Kelly is at Hobart's Princess Wharf for tonight's Tasmanian Athlete of the Year Awards. Hello, Nick. Eddie Ockenden is no stranger to this honour either.
No, he's taken this gong twice already, Lou, and quite fittingly, he's in the running for a 3rd tonight. So too is Golden Girl Ariane Titmus, who's going for an unmatched 4th Athlete of the Year. They're among a number of names which Tasmanian sport fans will certainly recognise. We're also going to see 2 new inductees into the Tasmanian Sporting Hall of Fame, joining 142 Tassie greats who've gone before them. And Lou, I'll have more on those nominees along with the rest of today's sports news a little later in the bulletin.
Wonderful. We'll look forward to it. Thank you for that, Nick. We will see you later on. Police in northern Tasmania will be conducting high visibility patrols at shopping precincts targeting shoplifting and antisocial behaviour in the lead up to the festive season.
School holidays is always a fairly hot time for Tasmania Police. We do see an increase in thefts, antisocial behaviour.
Fresh graduates from the Police Academy will be involved in the foot patrols to deter would-be thieves. And police are investigating a deliberately lit house fire on the outskirts of Launceston. Fire crews rushed to Lagana in the early hours of this morning but were unable to save the vacant home.
Residents on this quiet street in Lagana were woken just before 4 a.m. as fire tore through a house, flames leaping high into the air.
The noise was amazing. We woke up and it sounded like someone shooting a gun, explosions. We raced outside. It sounded like it was in our backyard.
When I went into the ensuite and there were noises from through the window and that sort of thing, and then I saw a glow, so I had to go and get the phone.
Fire crews were quickly on the scene but unable to save the vacant property, which has been destroyed. Owner Glenn Gilpin, who lives next door, left to lament his loss.
There wasn't a lot they could do to save it, or just to knock it down and stop it from spreading to the shed at the back.
Fire investigators deeming the blaze suspicious, with police now investigating.
At this stage, we believe that fire has been deliberately lit. The matter's been handed over to the Criminal Investigation Branch, who will be conducting an investigation into the cause of the fire.
The Fibro house had been unoccupied for a number of years, with the owner telling 7 Nightly News that squatters had taken up residence inside earlier this year.
It needed money to spend on it, and I didn't have the money to spend on it at the time, and so I did rent it out for a few years, but it's been empty for a number of years now.
The house was uninsured, with damage estimated at $180,000. Melinda Ogden, 7 Tasmania News.
In an unusual summer sight, Launceston's first basin swimming pool has been forced to close. The Cataract Gorge icon is off limits after being inundated with floodwaters from the South Esk River.
It's unfit for the public to swim in, and it's unsafe. The chlorine levels just aren't there.
Council hopes it can begin drainage work this weekend so the pool can reopen in time for Christmas. A new campaign warning of the dangers of the upcoming bushfire season is hitting screens this week. Emergency Services releasing the statewide push to brush up on plans and prepare properties as authorities brace for the worst of the heat.
You think it won't happen to you until it does.
Summer has arrived, and with that comes the increased threat of bushfires.
90% of the state is bushfire prone in Tasmania. We need people to be prepared regardless of where you are.
Being prepared for the worst, the message of a new campaign.
You think you don't need a plan until you don't have one.
You think you'll have time to leave until it's too late.
Warning Tasmanians to make their homes summer safe and brush up on bushfire plans before it's too late.
There are a lot of simple things like cleaning gutters, removing vegetation from around your house, but also preparing that when you leave, what are you going to do?
Download the Tas Alert app. It's your primary source of truth when it comes to emergency warnings.
While this season's bushfire outlook is normal, authorities say that's no reason to let your guard down.
We've had some recent rain. We don't want community to be complacent. There's still real potential with spikes in wind for fire to travel across the landscape.
There's likely to be total fire bans and the potential of bushfires that may burn for several days.
The statewide fire permit period is already in place. Victoria Risto, 7 Tasmania News.
Another iconic Tasmanian festival is pulling the pin, blaming rising cost of living pressures and a switch to streaming platforms. The founders of the Breath of Air Film Festival deciding after 14 years now is the time to roll the credits and shut off the projector for one last time.
We've had such an amazing ride, really, learning how to run a major festival like this, because previously Tasmania didn't have a film festival.
Since its inception in 2010, more than 400 films have been screened, bringing famous faces including the likes of Sam Neill to Tasmania. Tasmania's native animals are being enlisted to teach children about the importance of our water resources. The program launching in schools from next year, equipping kids with knowledge about protecting our state's reservoirs and rivers.
Bingo had a rough start to life after her mother was hit by a car when she was a newborn. And while she's happy and healthy now, there are some important lessons to take away.
Wombats need plants to survive, and they need water.
These students now learning why our state's water sources are so precious, given Tasmania's water literacy levels remain lower than other parts of the country.
You look around and everything's so green and lush, and so there would be the perception that water is plentiful, but it doesn't always fall where we want it to.
This book and other online resources using the 6 Water Guardians, guiding students on how to care for the environment.
Educate us about the water cycle, the importance of keeping our rivers and catchments clean and unpolluted, as well as the need to conserve water.
The program's welcome news for Bonorong, who deal with over 17,000 rescue cases per year.
A significant proportion of those would be
impacted by pressure on the environment, so lack of water resources.
And while it doesn't officially launch until term 2 next year, wildlife carers say there are things we can be doing in the meantime.
Putting water bowls out for the native birds, bandicoot-friendly habitat with native vegetation which contains water. They're little things that people can do that will make a big difference.
Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
As Christmas draws closer, local charity Homebase is gearing up to spread festive cheer for its community Christmas lunch. It's calling on locals to donate their time or money to help Tasmanians facing hardship enjoy a lavish lunch at the Hanging Garden.
A community lunch gives them a real opportunity to not worry so much about Christmas Day.
We're incredibly proud to be able to host this event with Homebase. It's just such a meaningful event.
Homebase says a $20 donation will feed one person a plate with all the trimmings. Its goal is to raise $5,000.
Hello again from Hobart's Princes Wharf 1, where Tasmania's Athlete of the Year for 2024 will soon be crowned. 5 deserving athletes are all in contention who we've seen do great things this year, including Max Giuliani, who made his Olympic debut this year in Paris, making the final of the men's 200-metre freestyle and winning bronze on the relay team. Rower Sarah Hoare, who competed in her final at the second Olympics in the women's 8 and finished 4th at the World Cup in Switzerland. Alana Smith, after playing a starring role for the Minnesota Lynx in the NBA Finals, narrowly missing the championship in a 5-game thriller. Eddie Ockenden, who of course announced his retirement today, and Ariane Titmus after another standout Olympics. Well, the Hurricanes' hunt for a maiden WBBL trophy will continue for another year after bowing out of contention in their first elimination match. But there's a definite glass half full attitude at Bellerive.
To make finals for the first time in I think 3 years, we're pretty happy, and what we're really happy about is that belief that the group has now that we can do something pretty special next year.
Jude's season highlight was Lazelle Lee's back-to-back centuries. The women's program now returns to focusing on their WNCL title defence. And the Jack Jumpers have a big chance to get their season back on track against the down-on-the-back Taipans, who've lost 9 straight games. The Jackies, on the other hand, are going for 4 wins in a row, and their record at home is even better, 10 out of the last 11. Another tonight could propel them back up into the play-in bracket. And Lou, that's all from me here tonight. We're not far from getting proceedings underway. We'll, of course, have a full wrap of all the honours tomorrow night.
Wonderful. Good job. Thanks for that, Nick. Have fun. Peter Murphy will join us after the break with the weather forecast.
Good evening. Warm day today. Hobart 26, Launceston 25, Devonport and Burnie recorded highs of 20. Campania and Ouse, the hotspots today, reaching 29 degrees. Grove 28, Strawn a top of 26, Friendly Beaches and King Island 24, Flinders Island 23, Smithton, St Helens and Lyowini 22. Mostly clear skies today as well. A little scattered cloud over the southeast and off Flinders Island. Mid-level cloud is through South Australia, cloud with troughs evident over Western Australia. Tomorrow, a high over the Tasman still has a minor influence over Eastern Australia. The trough over Tasmania pushes back to a low over Western Australia. Our winds, southwesterly at 5 to 15 knots over the west and south as the trough crosses in the afternoon. We'll have coastal sea breezes as well. 40% chance of a shower for Hobart, Huonville and Campania. Temperatures in the high 20s up to 27 for Huonville and Campania tomorrow. Launceston a top of 29 degrees, a late shower moving in, 22 for Devonport, 21 the high for Georgetown. Burnie a shower as well, 23 the top, 22 for Strawn, a shower for Wynyard, 23 the maximum, while for St Helens a high of 27 with a possible shower, 27 also for Swansea, Port Arthur a high of 21 degrees. To the weekend now, and on Saturday showers more frequent over the north, contracting to the west and south by late evening, partly cloudy over the north and east on Sunday, showers easing from other districts, and on Monday fine apart from showers over the west and far south. Sunny and 29 in Perth tomorrow, 60% chance of a shower around starting time for the big test in Adelaide. A sunny start ahead of a shower in Melbourne, partly cloudy and warm in Sydney and Brisbane. And a very nice evening. Hobart 23 at the moment. Same in Launceston. Devonport currently 19 degrees. Louise, I'm very happy that it's not State of Origin rugby league season at the moment. I feel very uncomfortable wearing all this.
Well, at least it suits you, and that's the only compliment you'll be getting from me. Thank you for that, Murph. That is all your news for now. I'll be back later on with updates. Thanks for joining us. Have a lovely evening. Good night.